a little perspective, 300 miles per hour is approaching half the speed of sound. It may be hard to imagine what that would feel like behind the wheel of a car. There are 3 companies on the road.
After a months-long search, the Bureau of Customs has finally gotten its hands on the second Bugatti Chiron sports car.
For decades, the answer to one question seemed settled. What is the fastest car on Earth? The answer was Bugatti. From the Veyron to the Chiron, the French hypercar maker built machines so extreme that rivals spent years chasing numbers they could barely comprehend. 300 miles per hour became more than a record. It became a symbol of Bugatti's dominance. But while the automotive world celebrated the king, a revolution was quietly gathering speed. Not in Germany, not in Italy, and not with a roaring engine. A new generation of electric hypercars was preparing to challenge the one territory Bugatti believed it owned forever. So what really happened, and what does the evidence reveal? Let's explore the story. The throne Bugatti built, there are automotive brands, and then there is Bugatti.
Bugatti is different.
In the atelier, Bugatti builds one of the fastest, most expensive production cars in the world, the Chiron, which they test drive on mountain roads nearby.
The distinction matters because no other manufacturer in the history of the automobile has so completely fused engineering extremity with cultural mythology. Other brands make fast cars. Bugatti has spent over a century making the fastest car, not as a marketing position, but as an engineering obsession that defines the company's entire reason for existing. The Veyron arrived in 2005 and immediately changed the terms of every performance conversation happening in the automotive world. 16 cylinders, 1,000 horsepower at a time when that figure was genuinely incomprehensible for a road-legal vehicle. A top speed of 253 miles per hour that did not simply set a record. It reset the scale against which all other hypercars would be measured for the next decade. The Veyron was not a car that happened to be fast.
The car world. The Bugatti Veyron Supersport has been stripped of its fastest. Reports state the Veyron used for the record run of 267.8 miles per hour.
It was a statement about what was possible when an engineering team operated without compromise and without budget constraint. Then came the Chiron. And if the Veyron had announced Bugatti's intention to own the extreme end of the performance spectrum, the Chiron was the coronation. 1,500 horsepower. A quad-turbocharged 8-liter W16 engine that produces more torque than most commercial trucks.
The Bugatti's W16 engine. Okay, this one has 8 liters, 16 cylinders, quad turbos.
A top speed that required an entirely new tire. A tire that Michelin developed specifically for this one car, certified to hold together at speeds no production tire had ever been required to survive. And then, in 2019, a Chiron Supersport crossed 300 miles per hour in a controlled test run on the Eralessien track in Germany. The driver was Andy Wallace. The speed was 304.77 miles per hour. Bugatti had done what no production car manufacturer had done before. The flag was planted. What makes this history important is what it meant for Bugatti's identity. The brand did not simply hold speed records. The brand was the speed record. Its price point, its waiting list, its mythology, its place in the imagination of every person who has ever cared seriously about automobiles, all of it rested on the foundation of being fastest, not among hypercars.
The world's fastest production car, Bugatti Chiron.
The new Bugatti Chiron is designed to get your attention.
Not in a particular category. Fastest, full stop, without qualification. This is the throne that mattered. Not a metaphorical throne of prestige or heritage or design excellence, though Bugatti owns those things too. A specific, measurable, documentable throne built on one number, 300 miles per hour. And for the years between that Eralessien run and the arrival of what came next, That number was Bugatti's to hold. But a throne built on a number is only as secure as the number itself. Numbers, unlike heritage, can be surpassed. What Bugatti could not fully account for. What the entire combustion-powered hypercar world failed to reckon with was the speed at which electric propulsion was closing the gap. Not gradually, not incrementally, with the sudden, decisive velocity of a technology that had been quietly solving engineering problems. That combustion engines had been working around for over a century.
The angle of the engine, and with a lot of trickery that we did also with the rear crash structure and the suspension, which is now exposed.
The Challenger was already in development. The throne was already at risk, and the hypercar world was still celebrating the coronation. The electric machine nobody saw coming. The conventional wisdom inside the hypercar world was remarkably consistent for a remarkably long time. Electric vehicles were for commuters, for city driving, for people who prioritized efficiency over experience. The fundamental character of an electric drivetrain, its silence, its linearity, its absence of mechanical drama, was understood to be incompatible with what hypercar buyers were actually paying for. Speed was only part of the transaction. The sound of a W16 engine at full throttle, the sensation of turbines spooling, the physical presence of 12 cylinders, translating combustion into forward motion. These were not incidental features of a Bugatti. They were the product.
That Bugatti brings with it comes, of course, a huge responsibility because the brand exists for such a long time. And today we are laying the foundations.
The electric future could have the commuter market. The hypercar world was safe. Then Rimac entered the conversation, and the conversation changed permanently. The Croatian company founded by Mate Rimac did not arrive asking for permission to compete in the hypercar space. It arrived with engineering credentials that the traditional automotive world could not dismiss. Because those credentials came in the form of documented performance figures that combustion-engined hypercars, regardless of their heritage or their horsepower claims, could not match. The Rimac Nevera, an all-electric hypercar producing 1,914 horsepower from 4 electric motors, became the production car that forced the industry to stop treating electric performance as a theoretical future, and start treating it as a measurable present. 0 to 60 miles per hour in 1.81 seconds. A figure that does not belong in the same category as combustion performance benchmarks. It belongs in a different conversation entirely. A conversation about what happens when a drivetrain...
In the near future, I hope to see Rimac in the near future on the top of the top, and having many cars driving on the road and happy customers.
Delivers its maximum torque output from 0 RPM rather than building toward it across a power band. Instant torque. Full power available the moment the accelerator makes contact. No gear changes, no turbo lag, no mechanical negotiation between the engine and the road. Just force, applied immediately, without interruption. The Nevera did not simply challenge the hypercar hierarchy. It demolished the primary technical argument that the traditional hypercar world had used to dismiss electric performance. The argument that combustion engines produced a richer, more layered, more dynamic performance experience. The Nevera's acceleration data made that argument irrelevant at the level of measurable physics. Whatever combustion offered in terms of sound and theater, it could not offer 0 to 60 in 1.81 seconds. The numbers had spoken. But the Nevera was not the machine that targeted 300 miles per hour. That ambition belonged to a new generation of electric hypercar development that took the foundation Rimac established and pushed it toward the specific number that Bugatti had used to define its supremacy. Because if electric propulsion could win the acceleration argument, could it also win the top speed argument? Could a battery-powered car sustain the kind of speeds that had previously required combustion engines?
Which has given the petrol and diesel-driven engine a stay of execution.
Operating at the extreme limit of engineering? The answer when it arrived was not theoretical. It came with data attached. And for the first time in the history of extreme automotive performance, the data pointed somewhere other than Molsheim. What does it mean when the engineering culture that produced the Nevera turns its attention to 300 miles per hour? It means that the specific domain Bugatti had claimed as exclusively its own, extreme top speed, is no longer a domain that electric propulsion is conceding. The challenger is not arriving to compete in a different category. It is arriving to compete in the same one, and the combustion-powered world that built that category has no technical argument left that the performance data supports. The number that built a throne, 300 miles per hour, is not just a number on a speedometer. It is a boundary line between what engineering can comfortably achieve and what it must painfully invent. At that speed, a car is no longer simply moving through air. It is actively fighting a physical environment that behaves more like a solid wall than a fluid. Every surface becomes a stress point. Every bolt becomes a structural decision. And every component is operating at a limit where failure is not dramatic. It is immediate. This is why only a handful of machines in history have ever approached this territory, and why each attempt becomes a kind of engineering event rather than just a performance run. When Bugatti pushed the Chiron Supersport 300+ beyond 300 miles per hour in 2019 at Era Lessien in Germany, it wasn't treated as a casual top-speed run. It was a controlled, highly engineered moment years in the making. Driven by Andy Wallace, the prototype reached 304.77 miles per hour, a figure that required not only the 8.0-liter quad-turbocharged W16 engine producing 1,600 horsepower, but also a long-tail aerodynamic redesign, extreme cooling management, and custom Michelin high-speed tires developed for sustained stability far beyond normal production limits. Even then, Bugatti didn't sell that exact configuration to customers. The run was a statement of capability, not a casual user experience. Because at that level, the real challenge is not acceleration, it is stability. A millimeter of aerodynamic imbalance at 300 miles per hour can translate into catastrophic lift forces. A temperature spike in a tire can mean structural failure within seconds. But what made Bugatti's achievement historically important is not just the number, it is what the number represented for combustion engineering. It was the peak of a century-long development curve. Internal combustion, turbocharging, thermal management, high-speed tire science, and extreme aerodynamic calibration all converging into a single direction, more speed through more mechanical complexity. For years, that seemed unchallenged. Then, electric performance stopped behaving like an alternative and started behaving like an acceleration of its own. The Rimac Nevera, developed in Croatia under Matt Rimac, didn't just enter the hypercar space. It rewrote the acceleration benchmark entirely. With 1,914 horsepower delivered through 4 independent electric motors, it achieved 0 to 60 miles per hour in 1.81 seconds, a figure that effectively removed drivetrain lag as a limiting factor in performance. Unlike combustion engines, electric motors deliver peak torque instantly. There is no gearshift interruption, no turbo spool, no torque curve buildup, just immediate force. But top speed was still the question mark. Because even if electric cars could dominate acceleration, sustaining extreme velocity was another matter entirely. Battery thermal limits, aerodynamic drag, and energy consumption scale brutally at high speed. Above 250 miles per hour, air resistance doesn't increase linearly, it rises exponentially. Every additional mile per hour requires dramatically more power than the last. This is where the narrative becomes important. Because while Bugatti represents the peak of combustion-era engineering, a new generation of hypercar thinking has already emerged. Cars like the Koenigsegg Jesko Absolute are being designed with theoretical top speeds above 300 miles per hour, using ultra-low drag bodywork and lightweight hybridized combustion systems. Meanwhile, American manufacturers like Hennessy with the Venom F5 are explicitly targeting 300+ miles per hour with extreme lightweight construction and massive twin-turbo V8 output. And then there is SSC North America's Tuatara, a controversial case that briefly claimed over 300 miles per hour before discrepancies in data. Recording led to widespread debate about validation standards in hypercar speed testing. Electric challengers, however, are now entering the same conversation. Rimac technology partnership with Bugatti under the Bugatti. Rimac joint venture signals something deeper than competition. It signals convergence. The same engineering minds that proved electric acceleration dominance are now inside the ecosystem that once defined combustion supremacy. The real shift is not simply that electric hypercars might reach 300 miles per hour.
CEO of Bugatti, Rimac, who's brought along a prototype of the 2078 brake horsepower Rimac Nevera R.
It is that they may eventually reach it with fewer moving parts, less mechanical complexity, and fundamentally different constraints. Instead of managing thousands of tiny combustion explosions per minute, engineers are managing heat distribution across battery cells and optimizing energy discharge curves across electric systems. If that happens, if a production electric hypercar crosses the 300 miles per hour threshold under validated conditions, then the historical meaning of speed changes. Because Bugatti's dominance was never just about luxury or design. It was about being the final authority on speed itself. The W16 engine was not just power, it was identity. The sound, the vibration, the mechanical theater. All of it became inseparable from what fastest car in the world meant. Electric performance removes that theater entirely. It replaces drama with immediacy, noise with silence, mechanical progression with instant response. And that is where the real disruption lies. Because if two machines can reach the same top speed, one through a century of combustion refinement and one through relatively new electric architecture, then the question stops being, which is faster? And becomes, what does speed even represent now? Bugatti's throne was built on a number, 300 miles per hour. But numbers do not stay owned forever. They get redefined, remeasured, and eventually recontextualized by new technology. And when that happens, the real shift is not just in engineering. It is in meaning. What Bugatti can't buy back, here is the problem that no amount of engineering investment can fully solve for Bugatti. The company's identity, the mythology that justifies the price, the waiting list, the reverence, is inseparable from the combustion engine that powers its cars.
Bugatti developed this car, they had to make their own dynos. The engine takes a week to build, and the mechanic puts it together in a dust suit and gloves, even a speck of contamination dirt.
Not any combustion engine, a specific one, the W16, quad turbocharged, 8 liters of displacement, organized into a configuration that no other manufacturer produces, and that Bugatti has spent decades developing into something that functions less like a mechanical component and more like the physical embodiment of the brand's values. When a Bugatti Chiron accelerates at full throttle, the sound it produces is not incidental to the experience. It is the experience. The acoustic signature of 16 cylinders at their operational limit is the thing Bugatti customers are describing when they talk about what makes their car irreplaceable. It is the thing automotive journalists reach for first when asked to characterize what separates a Bugatti from everything else in the hypercar category. The mechanical theater of a W16 at 3,000 RPM, at 5,000 RPM, at its operational limit. This is the product. The speed is the proof. The engine is the identity. The electric hypercar has none of this, and it does not need any of it. This is the distinction that the traditional hypercar world has struggled to fully process. Not that electric performance is inferior, but that it is operating on a completely different value proposition. The electric Challenger offers silence as a feature. It offers linearity as a feature. It offers the absence of mechanical complexity as a feature. And for a generation of hypercar buyers who grew up with electric vehicles as a normalized part of their automotive experience, those are not compromises. They are preferences. What Bugatti cannot buy back is the exclusivity of the number. For years, 300 miles per hour belonged to Bugatti. Not legally, not contractually, but practically. It was theirs because they got there first, because the engineering required to reach it was so demanding that no competitor had managed to close the gap. That exclusivity was part of the Bugatti identity as surely as the horseshoe grille or the center line that divides the Chiron's body. When the electric Challenger targets the same number with credible engineering data rather than theoretical claims, the exclusivity ends. The number becomes contested ground, and contested ground is not where a luxury brand builds its mythology. The deeper problem is transitional. Bugatti, as part of the Volkswagen Group, commands extraordinary resources and engineering capability. It is not incapable of developing an electric hypercar. But the decision to do so would require acknowledging that the W16's era is ending, and that acknowledgement would destabilize the mythology that makes existing Bugatti customers feel their investment was justified. The transition necessary to remain competitive in an electrifying performance market is, by its nature, a contradiction of the identity that made Bugatti worth competing for in the first place. This is what cannot be bought back. Not the speed record, not the performance benchmark. The meaning, the specific, irreplaceable meaning of a combustion-powered car from Molsheim, France, built without compromise to be the fastest road car alive. When that meaning is no longer backed by the record, something fundamental changes. Not immediately, not catastrophically in the short term, but structurally, at the foundation of what the brand represents. Something has shifted, and structural shifts in brand mythology, once they begin, do not reverse easily. The question Bugatti now faces is not whether it can build a faster car. It almost certainly can. The question is whether a faster car, built on different principles, can carry the same weight as the car that came before it. History suggests the answer is complicated. The market will decide if complication is enough. The new hypercar hierarchy step back from the Bugatti question and look at the broader hypercar landscape, because what is happening is not a bilateral dispute between one legacy brand and one electric challenger. It is a reconfiguration of an entire competitive ecosystem. And every manufacturer operating at the extreme end of the performance market is being forced to decide, right now, what side of the transition they are on. Koenigsegg has been the most explicit about this decision. The Swedish manufacturer, which held the outright production car top speed record with the Agera RS run of 277.9 miles per hour in 2017, has spent years developing hybrid drivetrain technology that preserves the combustion experience while incorporating electric propulsion to extend performance beyond what combustion alone can deliver. The Gemera, producing 1,700 horsepower, from a combination of a 2-liter, 3-cylinder engine and 3 electric motors, represents Koenigsegg's answer. Not replacement, but augmentation. The combustion identity survives. The electric capability is added. The hierarchy question is answered by refusing to choose sides entirely. Rimac's position in this landscape is unique and structurally significant. The company does not simply make electric hypercars. It supplies electric drivetrain components to other hypercar manufacturers, including Bugatti itself. After the formation of the Bugatti-Rimac joint venture in 2021, this means the company most directly responsible for demonstrating what electric propulsion can achieve at the extreme end of the performance market is also, structurally, a partner to the brand that electric propulsion most directly threatens. The hypercar world's transition is not a clean conflict between old and new. It is an entanglement of dependencies and partnerships that makes the traditional narrative of competition inadequate for what is actually happening. Hennessy and SSC North America represent another dimension, the challenger position from outside the established European hypercar hierarchy. American manufacturers operating at this level have always competed without the brand mythology that Bugatti or Koenigsegg carry, which means their competitive identity has rested more directly on measurable performance than on heritage. For a manufacturer like Hennessy, whose Venom F5 targets 300 miles per hour.
This car, the Hennessy F5 Venom Revolution Evo, is something new because its 2031 horsepower is produced purely by the magic of internal combustion.
Through a combustion drivetrain, the arrival of credible electric competition at the same speed threshold is a different kind of pressure, not to mythology, but to the specific performance argument that has defined their market position. What the new hierarchy looks like is not yet fully determined, because it is still being constructed, one record attempt and one production announcement at a time. What is clear is that the organizing principle of the previous hierarchy, combustion, engine output as the primary determinant of extreme performance credibility, is no longer the only principle operating. Electric propulsion has introduced a second organizing principle: instant torque delivery, the elimination of mechanical limitations on power, and a development curve that is accelerating faster than the combustion world can comfortably respond to. These two principles produce different champions in different performance domains, and a hypercar market operating across both domains simultaneously is a fundamentally more complex market than the one Bugatti spent a century preparing to dominate. The throne that Bugatti built was real. The engineering that justified it was genuine. The performance it represented was the outer limit of what any road car had ever done. None of that history disappears because a 300 MPH electric hypercar entered the conversation. What disappears is the certainty, the settled quality of a hierarchy that everyone understood and that everyone accepted because the performance data supported it. That certainty is gone. In its place is something the hypercar world has not had to navigate before: a genuine open question about who holds the throne, what the throne is made of, and whether the next person to sit on it will arrive in silence. For more than a century, Bugatti defined what ultimate speed looked like. From the Veyron to the Chiron, the brand built its legend on one simple promise: be faster than everyone else. But history has a way of changing when new technology arrives. Today, electric hypercars are challenging records once thought untouchable, forcing the entire industry to rethink what performance really means. Is the future still powered by roaring engines and mechanical drama, or by silent machines delivering unimaginable speed through pure electricity? The answer may reshape the hypercar world forever. One throne, multiple challengers, and a battle that is only just beginning. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below.